Leonardo. Let me begin with something outrageous. For most of human civilization, purple was not a colour. It was a statement, a shimmering announcement that you were wealthy enough to stain your clothing with the liquefied suffering of thousands of sea snails. Tyrian purple didn't whisper royalty, it screamed it. And for 2,000 years, the world accepted this absurdity because no one else could make the stuff without bankrupting a kingdom or gagging from the stench. A glorious, ridiculous monopoly until chemistry kicked the door in. An 18-year-old student named William Henry Perkin tries to create synthetic quinine, fails disastrously, and invents mauve instead. In one incompetent moment, he takes the most exclusive colour on earth and drops it into the laps of everyone with a sewing machine. Victorian Britain lost its mind. Suddenly, the entire empire looked like someone had deep-fried the aristocracy in Ribena. But behind the spectacle, chemistry quietly realised, if a teenager made a global industry by accident, imagine what we could make on purpose. And so the aniline dye boom began, and with it, a very Victorian question. How do we scale purple to the whole planet without overspending or accidentally blowing up a factory? Enter industrial logic. Aniline dyes were marvellous, but slow, costly, temperamental. So the factories did what Victorian factories always did when faced with a barrier. They reached for arsenic. Arsenic trioxide pushed the reactions faster, made the colours brighter and made the spreadsheets much happier. Yes, it also produced mountains of toxic waste, vast purple heaps of chemical spite piled behind factories like abandoned dragon hordes. But this was the 19th century. If your industrial waste wasn't glowing, fizzing, or killing livestock on site, were you even innovating? Now, Leonardo, here's where the story crosses into performance art. Confronted with a rising mountain of arsenic sludge, the dye manufacturers did not panic. They did not redesign the process. They did not consider disposing of it safely. No, they named it. They packaged it. They sold it worldwide as London purple. A colour? A pesticide? A weaponized misunderstanding? Yes. All of the above. London purple is the exact moment in history when industry said, if waste is a problem, just give it a catchy name and ship it to farmers. And unbelievably, it worked. Fast forward to your lab bench, Leonardo. You're looking at 3 pieces of history. 2 refined mauves from Winsor and Newton, one nice, unapologetically feral chunk of London purple. Different decades, different chemistries, different destinies, and yet, under your analysis, a theme appears. They all contain arsenic. Not equally, of course. London purple doesn't contain arsenic. It is arsenic spiritually and chemically. Your sample clocks in at approximately 55% as by weight, which is less a pigment and more a mineral deposit with career ambitions. But even the elegant mauves, under SEM, under your microscope study, whisper traces of the same industrial shortcut that reshaped colour chemistry. Your lab becomes a time machine, 3 purples, 3 technologies, 1 shared chemical shadow. Here's the part that matters. Your results don't expose a scandal. They clarify a history. The arsenic in mauve, a predictable residue from the very process that made Perkin's accident economically viable. The arsenic in London purple? Exactly what the historical documents claimed. A stabilised waste mixture of calcium arsenites and arsenates, given a commercial passport because letting it pile up was even worse. And that 55% arsenic? Not shocking, just confirmation. The chemical equivalent of the past saying, yes, Leonardo, this is exactly who I was. Your analysis doesn't contradict history. It supports it, with data the Victorians never imagined anyone would possess. And your published work on mid-19th century microscope papers, where arsenic appears without fanfare or warning, fits the same pattern. Industry left fingerprints everywhere. You're simply the one bothering to look. This is where the story becomes elegant. Purple began as the colour of emperors, divine, exclusive. extracted from creatures that died for someone else's wardrobe. Then Perkin arrives and purple becomes the colour of modernity. Cheap, vivid, democratic. Then industry scales it, cuts corners and rebrands toxic waste as a product because profit wears whatever colour you give it. 3 eras, 3 meanings, 1 continuum. And on your desk, Leonardo, those 3 purples, under UV glow, under SM scatter, quietly tell the same story. Progress is beautiful. Progress is messy. Progress leaves a chemical trail that refuses to shut up. So here is the ending. The evolution of mauve, from royal privilege to accidental innovation to industrial byproduct, is the perfect illustration of how colour, chemistry and society collide in ways nobody anticipates. Your samples. The genteel mauves and the unrepentant London purple aren't just pigments, they're evidence, witnesses, chemical fossils. They show that the colours which reshaped the modern world came with hidden costs, industrial, environmental, human. And that history is not merely written in archives, but in trace elements, in glowing fragments, in the pigments that refuse to fade quietly, from royalty to the masses, with a violet shadow still visible today. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, good, because this story didn't make it into my book, and neither did several others like it. If you want the colours that did, the myths that survived scrutiny, and the ones that didn't, the pigment delusion is where they're waiting. And if you don't want to miss the next colour that lies, you know what to do.